The National Electrical Code defines a Class 2 Division 2 location as one where flammable dusts are not normally present in dangerous quantities, and combustible dusts are not suspended in the air under normal operating conditions. These materials may only become ignitable in the event of an accident or unusual operating condition. It is indeed possible to have an overall Class 2 Division 2 rating for a facility while having a specific room or area within that facility that requires a different and potentially more stringent hazardous location classification. This is because the classification is based on the specific conditions and potential hazards present in each individual area. A comprehensive hazard assessment is crucial in determining the appropriate classification for each area within a facility. This assessment should consider factors such as the type of materials being handled, the processes involved, the ventilation system, and the potential for releases of flammable dusts. In the context of the milling room, where pastils are being milled into a powder, the potential for a hazardous atmosphere exists even if the pastils are typically contained within piping. The milling process itself can generate dust, which, if combustible, can create a Class 2 hazardous location. The key factor in determining the appropriate classification for the milling room is the likelihood and frequency of a hazardous atmosphere being present. If the milling process routinely generates dust clouds that could reach explosive concentrations, then a more stringent classification, such as Class 2 Division 1, might be necessary. Class 2 Division 1 locations are defined as areas where ignitable dust is present in air under normal operating conditions in sufficient quantity to produce explosive or ignitable mixtures, or where mechanical failure or abnormal operation of equipment might cause such explosive or ignitable mixtures to be produced, and might also provide a source of ignition through simultaneous failure of equipment, or where combustible dusts of an electrically conductive nature may be present in hazardous quantities. If the dust generation is infrequent and contained, then a Class 2 Division 2 classification might be appropriate. To properly classify the milling room, 1. Conduct a thorough hazard assessment. This involves identifying the properties of the pastils being milled, evaluating the dust generation rate during milling, assessing the ventilation system's effectiveness in removing dust, and determining the likelihood of dust accumulation. 2. Consult with a qualified professional. Hazardous location classification is a complex process that requires expertise in electrical safety, industrial hygiene, and applicable codes and standards. A qualified professional can help you conduct the hazard assessment, interpret the results, and determine the appropriate classification for the milling room. 3. Consider the National Electrical Code. The NEC provides detailed definitions and requirements for hazardous locations. Article 500 and subsequent articles in the NEC address specific requirements for Class 2 locations. 4. Document your assessment and classification. It is important to maintain thorough records of the hazard assessment, the rationale for the classification, and the measures taken to mitigate hazards. This documentation will be essential for compliance with regulatory requirements and for future reference. If the hazard assessment indicates that the milling room should be classified as Class 2 Division 1 or Class 2 Division 2, then you will need to select and install equipment that is specifically designed and approved for use in a hazardous location. This includes explosion-proof or dust ignition-proof instrumentation, wiring methods, and other electrical equipment. Explosion-proof equipment is designed to contain an internal explosion without causing ignition of the surrounding atmosphere. Dust ignition-proof equipment is designed to prevent the ingress of dust and to prevent the surface temperature of the equipment from exceeding the ignition temperature of the dust. When selecting equipment for hazardous locations, it is essential to ensure that it is properly labeled and certified by a recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories or FM approvals. The equipment label should indicate the class, division, and group for which the equipment is approved. Additionally, wiring methods in hazardous locations must be carefully selected to prevent the propagation of explosions or fires. Common wiring methods for Class 2 locations include rigid metal conduit, electrical metallic tubing with threaded fittings, and Type MC cable with a continuous metallic sheath. Seals are also required to prevent the passage of gases, vapors, or dusts from one area to another through conduit systems. In summary, it is possible to have an overall Class 2 Division 2 rating for a facility while having a specific room or area within that facility with a different classification. The appropriate classification for each area is determined by a thorough hazard assessment, considering the specific conditions and potential hazards present. A qualified professional should be consulted to ensure that the hazard assessment is conducted properly and that the appropriate classification and equipment are selected. Remember that safety is paramount when dealing with hazardous locations. By following the guidelines and recommendations outlined in the National Electrical Code and consulting with qualified professionals, you can ensure a safe and compliant working environment. The specific requirements for electrical equipment and wiring in Class 2 Division 2 locations are detailed in Articles 500 through 506 of the National Electrical Code. It is important to consult these articles for detailed guidance on selecting and installing equipment that is suitable for the specific hazardous location. For example, Section 502.10 concerns wiring methods. In Class 2 Division 2 locations, one can use threaded rigid metal conduit, threaded steel intermediate metal conduit, Type MI cable with termination fittings, or cable in busways. Type MC cable, employing the methods outlined in 330.30, which dictates securing and supporting requirements, is also applicable. Fittings must be approved for Class 2 locations, ensuring a secure and safe installation. The selection hinges on factors like physical protection, corrosion resistance, and the need for explosion containment. Section 502.100 discusses motors and generators. Motors and generators must be totally enclosed pipe ventilated or be dust ignition proof. The key here is preventing arcs, sparks, or heat from igniting the combustible dust. Totally enclosed, pipe ventilated motors are cooled by a forced draft of clean air, while dust ignition proof motors are built to exclude dust and prevent it from overheating. Section 502.125 delves into lighting fixtures. Lighting fixtures must be protected from physical damage and be dust ignition proof. Surface temperatures must remain below the ignition temperature of the specific dust present. Fixtures need to be marked with their maximum safe operating temperature. Using a globe guard is essential to prevent bulb breakage. Section 502.130 focuses on control equipment. Control equipment, such as switches, circuit breakers, and motor starters, must be in dust ignition proof enclosures. The enclosures prevent dust from entering and causing short circuits or ignitions. Regular inspections and maintenance are also key to ensure the integrity of the control equipment. Section 502.140 addresses utilization equipment. This equipment, including heaters and appliances, must be dust ignition proof. They must be designed to prevent dust accumulation and overheating. Marking should clearly indicate the equipment's safe operating temperature. Section 502.145 covers flexible cords. Flexible cords can be used for connection provided they are approved for extra hard usage, contain an equipment grounding conductor, are supported, and are protected from physical damage. Strain relief is crucial to prevent pulling on the connections. Section 502.155 discusses grounding. Grounding is essential in Class 2 locations to minimize the risk of static discharge and electrical shock. All metal enclosures, raceways, and equipment must be properly grounded. The grounding system must comply with Article 250. Section 502.160 discusses surge protection. Surge protection devices must be suitable for Class 2, Division 2 locations. These devices protect sensitive electronic equipment from voltage spikes. Section 502.5 covers sealing Class 2, Division 2. Where a raceway provides communication between an area that is hazardous and an area that is unclassified, it needs a seal. This prevents dust from migrating between areas. The seal must be readily accessible. Section 502.30 covers explosion-proof equipment. In Class 2, Division 2 locations, all equipment must be dust ignition proof. The equipment's design ensures that any arcs, sparks, or heat generated inside the enclosure will not ignite dust outside.